I just finished the first 3 missions of Armored Core 6, and it is quite different compared to the previous AC games. I will be giving my first impressions of this game from the perspective of someone who really enjoyed the PlayStation 2 versions of Armored Core. So the first thing I noticed right away was just how long the missions are. So the first mission in the game felt like 3 to 5 missions just combined together into one big mission. Like if you could split it up, it would be like mission 1, take down the guards. Mission 2, collect ID tags, but then you wouldn't find the perfect ones. So then you go to mission 3, where you'd finally collect the ID, but then have a boss fight. That's how it would be like if this was a PS2 Armored Core game. But after having such a long mission, the next one was then just short again, back to like typical Armored Core mission length. So yeah, I'm interested to see how this will develop over time. Will the missions stay long, or will they just go back to like normal pacing? Then the one thing I really like that they've done was to improve the cutscene quality. In previous Armored Core games, the only times it really said cutscene, we'd have like one cutscene at the beginning and one at the end, but like it always wouldn't be there. Sometimes there'd be cutscenes, sometimes not, and most of the time the character voice lines would be like 1 or 2 or 3 sentences and nothing more. The thing I really like about Armored Core 6 is that there's not much more character dialogue that happens in this game, and so it means that we understand the story much better than we did in previous games. Not only that, but even the NPCs, if we'd call them, the MTs, also have some much more fleshed out dialogue. Because I know in Armored Core Lost Raven, the only time you'd ever hear the MTs have dialogue is if they played a big role in the mission, or it would be the soldiers in some of the missions who would actually make comments.
We're saved! Thank you.
But other than that, it was very rare to have like a lot of dialogue. So that's one thing I really like that they've improved on. And there's also much more going on throughout the cutscenes. You can tell that like the storytelling from Software is much more improved. Because I know in the previous Armored Core games, the character would say one line of dialogue.
It's about time.
Then it would be followed by 3 seconds of silence. Then they'd say the next line.
You will not take control.
Then 5 seconds of silence before they say their third line and then start the mission. But this time, there's like a much more steady stream of dialogue combined with what's going on screen, and I really like that, so that's great. Then there was also a controversial addition to Armored Core 6, which is target assist. A lot of people were complaining hard lock is gonna ruin the game and make it too easy, but from what I've seen and what I've experienced, target assist is actually a very useful thing, and I've used it a lot more than I expected. I honestly don't know why someone would think this is a bad feature. So with Armored Core 6, the speed at which the enemies move seems to have been increased significantly, especially compared to Lost Raven, where for the most part you could keep them in your sights, and maybe the pulverizers would be too fast, but almost everyone else was pretty easy to keep up with. But here, even just this helicopter is pretty fast, so adding the target assist makes it so much easier to follow the movement of the enemy and not lose track of them. And I find that the speed of the enemies makes the gameplay significantly more engaging, rather than just the very basic circle strafing that you'd have to do in the previous games. Now, it's not all great because I found a big problem with the controller. When it comes to controller movement, I find that the camera just does not move fast enough for me. So I'll be holding it down all the way to the end, but it just doesn't keep up with the enemies. Then I end up losing track of them. And because there really isn't much of a radar in this game, it's actually quite difficult to keep track of the enemies. So there are many times, and I mean lots of times, where I wish I had like a trackpad or a mouse so I could quickly flick the camera to the right direction so I could keep track of the enemy. And I'm sure if you own a Steam Deck, that's where you'll be super happy with the combination of the right analog stick with the trackpad, because you can use the right stick to aim, and then when you need to flick, you can just flick with the trackpad. But unfortunately, I don't have a Steam Deck because in my country they're quite expensive. If you want to see more Armored Core 6 videos, please subscribe to the channel because I'll be posting more. As a controller user, I really hope that From Software can find a solution for this in the next game. Like maybe let us have more controller customization. Now, an unexpected benefit from target assist is that it actually allows me to take a more aerial playstyle and be able to effectively use it while on a controller. Because now, when it came to playing Armored Core Lost Raven, I always found that flying in the air and aiming up or down was always the biggest struggle with using a controller. So with target assist, which essentially handles the aiming for you, it's actually really nice to be able to just jump in the air, fly above the enemy, and hit them while they're kind of trying to adjust their aim. And I found that it's actually a pretty useful playstyle. In fact, for some of the bosses in the game that I faced later, being able to flying above them is actually super important to actually beating the mission. So that's one really nice benefit of the target assist. Now, one big change that From Software made was how energy is handled. Unlike the previous games where you had a full energy gauge, and if you boosted, you used up the energy. If you don't boost, you always recharge. However, with Armored Core 6, what I found is that if you boost in the air and stop boosting, there's a bit of a pause before the energy starts to recharge. And the energy also recharges almost instantly when you're on the ground. So this kind of forces you to play on the ground much more than you'd like, especially in the beginning here, where the AC tends to be fairly weak and has really bad energy management. So even though it's different, it doesn't mean that it's actually easier than before. It's just a unique challenge in terms of energy management. Do I like it? Do I hate it? Not really, I'm just kind of neutral about it. And now coming back to that helicopter we fought earlier. Despite my experience with playing Armored Core 3 to completion, Armored Core Lost Raven to like halfway through, and also playing a bit of Armored Core for Answer, none of it really prepared me for Armored Core 6, because the helicopter enemy is actually kind of difficult. I actually failed about, I think, once or twice, and it was really nice to have that checkpoint feature so I wouldn't have to restart from scratch. And since I didn't have access to customization, I really had to think deeply about the tactics I used. So when it came to attacking this guy, I found that unlike with the previous games where you could just stand in one place and just shoot, here you had to think about your dodging. So I'd always be looking out for his next missile shots. The moment he starts to fire those missiles, I prepare the quick boost. Whenever you remain static, like staying in one position, that's when I know it's time to assault boost and hit him with some blade hits. And speaking of blades, I really like how blades are handled in this game. In Lost Raven, they didn't really have blade tracking, so you pretty much always flew in a straight line when it came to blading. So that meant that only the pros would really handle the blading. But with the tracking feature that they've added now, where we kind of lock on to the enemy we're gonna blade, it makes it so much more practical to actually use the blade. And I also kind of like the combos feature where you can like string together a couple of blade hits. It really makes it so much better to play. And I honestly enjoy melee gameplay a lot more than I expected. And I haven't even unlocked the boost kick or any of the other stuff yet. So I'm sure the melee is only going to get better from here. I also like how much they really lean into like the tutorials in this game, because if you've played any of the older Armored Core games, there's barely any tutorials at all, and so it's always a confusing experience as a new player. But now they've included tutorials for almost everything: boosting, using weapons, customization, all of this stuff. So I think newcomers will definitely have a much easier time playing. And I also like how in the customization menu they have like a video thing which shows you how the weapon acts, so you don't have to like equip a weapon, test it out, and then come back to the garage. Especially with my slow Xbox One, this game looks kind of bad on my Xbox. Now I understand it's a 10-year-old machine, so this kind of comes with the territory, but I honestly wish we had like a bit more in terms of graphics settings, because when I take screenshots on this game, they all look really fuzzy. And then when you take this game and play it on like a 4K TV like I'm doing, the graphics just look horrendous. I'll definitely be saving up for like a better console or PC so I can truly enjoy this game. Now, one thing I don't like is that they lock you out of the customization. Now, I'm pretty sure that they did also do this in Armored Core 3, where you're like limited in parts. I think Lost Raven is one of the only games where you had almost everything unlocked from the beginning. But I honestly wish that they just unlocked everything for us, more experienced players. I hate how I have to like do so many missions before I unlock tank legs and quad legs. In fact, I had to beat the Strider with the biped legs, and it was unnecessarily difficult. Why add the quad legs if you're not going to let us use them? It makes no sense. But anyways, I'm enjoying the game so far. Thanks for watching.